Hey guys, my name is Tommy. Welcome back to the channel. Today, min-maxing for fun and profit rolls right on. We're not quite done making our GMs quit the hobby / making our players rip their character sheets up and throw them in the trash quite yet. Today, we're going to continue talking about spell optimization, and we're moving on to the wizards and sorcerers. Here we go. So one thing I do want to note before we get down to the nitty-gritty here. For the wizards, a lot of this guide is going to be taken with a grain of salt depending on how much money you make in your campaign and how linear it is versus how open world. A wizard can know any number of spells, all he has to do is buy more spell books. So if we're in a world where we have lots of money or the ability to go get any spell we want, we're prepared for any situation with 8 hours of rest just as soon as we have the money. This guide is going to assume we are either A, playing a sorcerer, or B, playing in something like an AP or a less magical world, somewhere where our spell selection really counts. So let's get right down to business here. For level 0, the best cantrip a wizard or sorcerer can take is Mage Hand. This spell is definitively 100% the most puzzle-breakingest of all the puzzle-breaking spells that have ever been made in this game. You point your finger at an object and you have 15 feet as a move action worth of 5-pound telekinesis. Now this doesn't sound super impressive right off the bat, but if there's something out of your reach that you need to move, something you need to untie, something that needs to get across a chasm, what have you, this spell will get the job done. If you think that chest might be trapped, might be a mimic, might be a trap full of mimics, just step away from it, hit it with the mage hand, see what happens. Our spell for level 1 is going to be a little out of left field for some people. Now, I'm a big fan of color spray and sleep, and no argument from me. At low levels, they're amazing spells that can end an encounter in 1 or 2 turns. I also really enjoy magic missile, and I really like the concept of here's some d4 worth of damage that are always going to hit, no matter what happens, always going to make sure we get our damage through. However, for the purpose of this guide, we want to look at spells that are going to scale the entire game. Though we do want to take spells like Sleep, Color Spray, Magic Missile, Mage Armor, which eventually we're all replacing with Bracers of Armor, whether or not we have armor proficiency, we want to concentrate more on the spells that are going to shine throughout the entire game. Therefore, our level 1 spell is going to be Anticipate Peril. This spell is pretty simple. We cast it, it lasts for a minute per level or until activated. When it's activated, it gives the target an insight bonus on their initiative check equal to the spell's caster level with a maximum of 5. I'm a big fan of initiative, a big fan of the action economy, a big fan of we go first, we're more likely to survive encounters. Initiative is super important in my opinion, therefore this spell, likewise, super important. Our choice of level 2 spell changes a lot over the course of our campaigns. At level 2, wizards and sorcerers get access to protection from good, protection from evil, protection from chaos, and protection from law. All of these can be really strong spells, but they're only as strong as what we're fighting. So it's important to only take these spells if we know for sure, like maybe if we're playing in an AP and we're terrible cheaters and we've read it, we know what we're going to be fighting, we know what to memorize. In all other situations, we're looking at the spell Fog Cloud for our level 2 spell. When we cast this spell, a bank of fog billows out in a 20-foot radius wherever we designate. This obscures all sight, including dark vision. Basically, this is our panic button if the party needs to get out. We also have things like invisibility, mirror image, but in higher level play, it's not hard to find something that has True Seeing or something that can cast True Seeing and defeat those spells outright. True Seeing does not beat Concealment, however. As long as we're more than 5 feet away from something when we cast this, we've got total concealment. They can't attack us unless they have something other than sight to locate us with. With Blind Sense and Blind Sight, they can know we exist, but they don't know what square we're in, so dragons can't beat this. Scent can beat this spell, but I find at higher levels, Scent is not going to be nearly as much of a thing we're worried about compared to True Seeing, compared to astral fire raining down on our heads. So okay, fine, if the bear can find us, the bear found us. The higher level guys probably didn't. A lot of people, myself included, think that the spell you want to take at level 3 is Fireball. I'm not going to sit here and say Fireball is a bad spell, but I will say that it does not scale with level, and in high level play, you're often not going to scratch the bad guys. A good example of this, not too terribly long ago, I was playing a character with evasion and a high reflex save who happened to get his hands on an entire necklace of fireballs. We're up against a worm that walks, that has fire vulnerability, he's way over our level, and I get in my head, okay, I'm gonna charge this dude, find a way to detonate the entire necklace of fireballs in one shot, we're gonna wipe him off the face of the earth, I've got evasion, and I know I'm gonna pass the easy reflex save, we've got this. Now for those of us who aren't aware, a necklace of fireballs type 7 has one 10d6 fireball, two 96 fireballs, two 7d6 fireballs, two 5d6 fireballs, and two 3d6 fireballs attached to it. When the necklace of fireballs is targeted by a magical fire attack, the whole thing explodes, and I quote, often with regrettable consequences for the wearer. Those regrettable consequences come in the form of 58 d6 worth of fireballs. It's only a DC 19 reflex for half, and my character can pass it, so we go in, we detonate this thing, I pass all the reflex saves, 58 d6 get thrown across this table. I tried my best to find this picture because I'm telling you, I look like a kid in a candy store when I'm rolling these dice. However, when we do the math, the average amount of damage on a fireball that big is 203 points of fire damage. Yes, that's a whole lot. No argument from me. In lower levels, when the swarm of goblins and kobolds and zombies, oh my, are knocking on the door, yeah, okay, boom, blow them up. At higher level play, we take this 203 damage average. We're not even saying that we're going to hit 203. And again, this is with a magic item. We can't cast this at will. This is an example of a spell all rolled together into a magic item about 20 times over and go to town. If we got exact average, did 203 damage, and the bad guy passes his DC 19 reflex save for half, he took 101 points of fire damage. This is before any fire resistance the bad guy might possess. This is before spell resistance. Long story short, that worm that walks, he survived that many d6 of fireballs. If he can survive 58 d6 worth of fireballs, if any mid to high range bad guy can survive that many d6 of fireballs, how can we realistically say that we're going to have at max level our 10d6 fireball maximized, intensified, whatever we do to it to make it do this damage? How can we justify that? In my opinion, at high levels, we can't. In this one's humble opinion, the best level 3 spell we can take is Haste. When we cast Haste and we target one creature per level, which the max doesn't really matter too much. Long story short, when we target our party, they get an extra attack in a full attack action, a +1 bonus on their attack rolls, and a +1 dodge bonus to their armor class. This can sometimes seem a little lackluster, but consider this. Let's say we're playing in a party of 4 characters plus us. Doesn't matter what they are, we'll pretend they're 4 barbarians, why not? This is a weird party mechanic, I guess. Whatever, go with it. We give these 4 barbarians haste. Those 4 barbarians get an extra attack in a full attack action. At the end of the game, when the barbarian's base attack is 20, 15, 10, 5, assuming all these guys are rolling around with greatswords, they have 4 attacks. That makes 4 guys with 4 attacks, 16 attacks in a given round. With haste, we increase that from 16 to 20 attacks in a round. This means we give our barbarians an extra chance to hit, an extra chance to crit. We give them the ability to do more damage in a round than the bad guys are. This means that our action economy inches up above theirs in such a way that our party is doing more damage than the bad guys, which means we'll drop the bad guys before the bad guys drop us. Nevertheless, it's still your work that caused this to happen. It's still because of you that the melee characters get this extra attack, and that is why I highly recommend haste at all times. Now, there is one exception to this rule. Haste is a great spell, but if the party has a bunch of monks that are burning key points to get the haste effect, or a bunch of characters with the speed enchantment on their weapons, it loses its value. Thus, if our party decides to go this way, we drop haste and we replace it with slow. Creatures affected by slow are staggered, which means they get only a single move or standard action each turn, but not both, nor can they take full round action. This means that our monster with 5, 6, 7 attacks at high level, if he gets slowed, he gets 1, and if he had to move, he gets none. This spell, in my mind, would easily outdo haste if spell resistance and a will save to negate didn't exist. We always prefer the spells we cast on us, because those spells have a 100% chance of succeeding, whereas something we cast on the bad guys has a chance to fail, which is exactly why Fireball is not the spell we're looking at today. Our level 4 spell is a spell that I recently stumbled upon and cast in a game and had a whole lot of fun with it. It's called AKASHIC Communion. We get one knowledge check of our choice per 3 caster levels, each with a +10 insight bonus. We're treated as trained in any knowledge skill check for the purpose of these, and you can use this spell to re-roll any knowledge check you have failed. How, you might ask? We do this by reaching into the Akashic record, the place in the universe that holds a record of all the things that have happened, will happen, time itself, right there in the record. Our GM makes the checks for us, which means we don't always know if the check is accurate or not. At 20th level, we get 6 questions about anything, reaching into a vast knowledge pool that always has the answer. Whether or not we get the right answer is entirely up to us, entirely up to role-playing, things like that. However, if your party, and I know my party often gets like this, kind of like slows down trying to figure out how they want to solve a situation, if your party isn't good at decision making, if you're in a very open game setting, Akashic Communion can answer a lot of these questions really fast. I love it. It's super powerful. Don't miss it. Our 5th level spell is a spell that gets better or worse depending on how nice our GM is to us. However, whether or not our GM is super controlling of what we get to do, the spell Permanency is still incredibly powerful. It does exactly what you think it does. You take a spell effect such as read magic, comprehend languages, dark vision, and you make it permanent. You get that forever and ever and ever and ever once you achieve a minimum caster level and shell out a little bit of gold. I don't know about you guys, but I've never played a game ever where gold has been an issue. So permanency seems like a no-brainer to me. Now there's a certain table for spells that we can only target ourselves with for permanency. There's a table for things we can target objects, other members in the party, or ourselves, as well as spells such as Alarm or Alter River that we can cast over an area. However, at the very bottom of the description of this spell, it states, and I quote, "The GM may allow other spells to be made permanent." Now, this is not me saying we should find the most brokenest spell forever and write a sales pitch to our GM about how we just need this to happen. However, permanent haste, not something that should be too hard to argue for, considering all the players in the party can just buy this eventually anyway. If we assume the GM says we can only make permanent the things that we see in the book, we get things like telepathic bond, magic fang, reduce person, enlarge person, resistance for our friends. For us, we can have see invisibility, tongues, comprehend languages, detect magic. On objects, we can make something permanently invisible. We can make a permanent mage's private sanctum. We can set up permanent alarms in an area we really want to protect. We can make permanent symbols, like symbol of fear, symbol of death, that regenerate after being used, as well as things like wall of force, wall of light, wall of fire. This spell is super strong, and it takes a lot of spells and makes them even stronger. Never, ever, ever underestimate a spell that lets you have something forever. Our level 6 spell is the king of saving action economy. We're looking at Contingency. We cast the spell upon our person. At the same time, we cast another spell, and that spell comes into effect under some sort of condition that we decide when we cast Contingency. The spell cast with Contingency has to be a spell that affects us and can be a spell of no higher than at maximum level 6, but that's most of the spells that we've talked about so far. Some things I've seen, for example, are if initiative is rolled, cast haste. If I think the enemy has a low spell resistance, cast slow. Things of that nature. Now, some of the conditions that you set will be a little metagamey. We can always word things like, for example, like I just said, if initiative is rolled, cast haste. Word that instead to if combat begins, or if my fighter draws his weapon and says, "Hey wizard, cast that contingent spell for me," cast haste. This allows us to make a faint shimmering in the air, 4 feet wide and 8 feet high. Those we designate can enter this and be in a nice, cozy mansion taken care of by unseen servants for 2 hours per level of the caster. Why is this a good spell? Well, we took Fog Cloud for the same reason at lower level, and Fog Cloud still holds up as a quick retreat button. Fog Cloud in conjunction with the Magnificent Mansion is even better. Let's say the party's getting a little too overwhelmed, things are going bad, we need to get out of here. But we don't want to go too far away, we don't want to have to run back in or burn up another spell slot to teleport the whole party back to town, then teleport them here. What we do is we cast that low-level Fog Cloud, get everybody past that total concealment, then cast Mage's Magnificent Mansion, giving us a quick little retreat to a place where we can stop, heal, rest, take care of ourselves before charging back into the encounter. This causes us to burn a 7th level spell and a 2nd level spell rather than 2 7ths, which saves us another high level spell slot to do something more crazy in combat. In addition, there's a lot of people that don't like sleeping in dungeons, both players worried about random encounters and GMs worried about digging out random encounters alike. This spell virtually eliminates that. If you need to rest in the dungeon, just pop this, you're good to go. We have a lot of really powerful options for our level 8 spell. Dimensional Lock can stop things from running away. Mind Blank can prevent things from scrying us. Incendiary Cloud looks really good doing that 66 fire damage per round, but again, these things are either situational or they're doing minimal amounts of damage that are often just being beat by spell resistance, reflex saves, or resistance to some kind of damage in the first place. Thus, we're going to take a little bit of a change here. Thus, we're going to take a little bit of a 180 here, and we're going to take the spell Frightful Aspect. Now, most of the time, we don't want to be within 30 feet of the bad guys, but more often than not, especially in really cramped dungeons, this is going to happen anyway. So when we cast this spell, we give ourselves a +6 size bonus to Strength, a +4 size bonus to Con, a +6 natural armor bonus, DR 10 over magic, and spell resistance equal to 10 plus half of our caster level. That's all well and good, and if we need to use this spell to suddenly fill the dying fighter's role, okay, great. However, the reason we're taking this is it causes our enemies to automatically become shaken. If they hit us, they can become frightened for 1d4 rounds. Of course, we don't want to get hit. We're really just looking at something that puts the shaken effect on people with no save. For those of us who aren't in the know, the shaken effect constitutes a -2 penalty on attack rolls, saving throws, skill checks, and ability checks. Long story short, it's a -2 anytime the bad guy throws the dice. In high level play, we want to take everything away from the bad guys that we can. If they're already slowed or we're already hasted, that's all well and good. Tack on a -2, assuming we have something in the party to buff ourselves, we win more often. There are obviously a lot of really powerful 9th level spells, and just like we didn't talk about Miracle, we will not be talking about Wish in this video because it is obviously a super powerful spell. There's no need for me to sit down and explain why duplicating any other spell, transporting travelers, undoing misfortune, all at the cost of some gold pieces, is super powerful. We would take Overwhelming Presence as the cleric did, but instead, the 9th level spell for our wizard is going to be Mass Hold Monster. This spell functions exactly like Hold Person, except we can hit any living creature with this. That means dragons, that means demons. Of course, we would certainly prefer a spell that allowed no saving throw and got past spell resistance. However, the ability to shut off multiple creatures and make it to where the rest of our party can just go up and coup de grace them is too powerful to ignore. This spell is great. We love it. And frees up your actions so you can do other things in consecutive rounds. The ability to double that makes it double as good. This is our 19th level feat almost all the time. The second feat we want to talk about here is Spell Perfection. This is definitely a staple for all of our casting classes. I'm a little ashamed of myself. I didn't think of it in time to put it on the cleric video. Nonetheless, we're going to talk about it here. With 15 ranks in Spellcraft and at least 3 metamagic feats, we pick one spell when we take this feat, which we have the ability to cast. Whenever we cast that spell, we put 1 metamagic feat on it for free without affecting its level or casting time, so long as the total modified level of the spell does not use a spell slot above 9th level. So, for example, with this feat, we can make sure haste is quickened all the time. That's our swift action, frees up our standard action to slow the bad guys. Or hey, maybe make slow if your GM's not making guys with crazy will saves or crazy spell resistance. Make that your swift action, so we can standard action haste for our friends. And that's my take on optimizing an arcane caster. If you've got anything to add, throw it in the comments below. Be sure to like and subscribe for more videos. The next optimization video comes out next Wednesday.